The bitch is back. Part deux. In regards to the murder trial of Barry Morphew, his missing wife, Suzanne Morphew, their life with their daughters Mallory and Macy, their move to Colorado from Indiana, their relationship with their families, the Moorman family, particularly. Trust is a character in all of this, isn't it? Trust is talked about a lot, and people like to disparage Barry and could he be trusted, or who did he trust, you know, and they like to pick him apart about how he acted following the disappearance of Suzanne Morphew. Chris McDonald, for example, of the interview room, and his stunt, a stunt which is something that is done for drama and reaction, not integrity. So it's a stunt. So it's kind of something that involves a lack of trust, right? See, because when you're talking about trust, you've got to juxtapose it against trustworthy, okay? And let's roll through a few things here, because what happened on this phone call, I know I made a video about it a long time ago, and it was more just, because Chris McDonald never really wanted to have a conversation with Barry Morphew offering his help. Not really, okay? He's someone who loves to poke the bear, okay? And he loves to meddle, and it was actually insincere, and it was done for viewers and kind of for shits and giggles. And he calls Barry Morphew. Barry answers. He sounds quiet, broken, as one might expect. And Chris is just, hey, it's Chris. Oh, hello, says Barry. You know, I don't know you, sorry. Chris is like, I saw you in Salida giving out flyers. Barry, oh, okay, I don't recognize you. Chris says, yeah, so I saw you handing out flyers, and I just thought I'd give you a call. And, you know, Barry's like, where are you from? And in between Barry saying, where are you from? Are you from Salida? Chris doesn't say, I'm Chris McDonald. I'm an ex-detective, and I run a show on YouTube, and it's called The Interview Room. No, he says, smart ass, I'm from North Carolina originally. And, you know, I thought I'd just give you a call. I saw you handing out these flyers. And Barry says, well, look, I'm really sorry. I've been burned by many, many people. They call me, and I don't know them. If I knew who you were and if you were genuine, I'd be more than happy to talk. I've had 25 people call me just like you did, and they just burn me up, and I can't trust. I don't trust any of the YouTube guys. And he says, I'm sorry. I want to trust you. You know, and in between this, you know, to prompt Barry going into this further situation, you know, Chris McDonald's going, you know, I'm that guy from the YouTube channel, you know. Just rude, actually. Just rude. It's as if Chris has proof that Barry has murdered Suzanne, and even David Moorman and everyone waiting for this prelim trial saying, oh, we're all about to find some gruesome details. They still haven't. But this is how Chris was treating Barry Morphew soon after Barry Morphew's wife disappeared. And just making a mockery of trust, right? For shits and giggles, to entertain himself and to entertain you. And yeah, Barry, what did he say? He says, look, you know, these YouTube guys, sorry, I don't trust them. They've clobbered me. Okay, they've clobbered him because they've put potatoes on his head. They've made bobcat jokes. They've made up entire hours of video about him and Morgan Gentile, etc. Right? And how can he just trust someone who can't even be upfront in a single sentence on a phone? But Barry has the trust issues. Well, of course he's got the trust issues, right? He couldn't trust anybody. And no, he couldn't trust anybody in that search. It's not that he wouldn't have wanted to be with the searchers, okay? He's concerned for his life. He's concerned for his safety, okay? Now, I mentioned David Moorman. David Moorman, we didn't hear about at all. This is one of Susan's brothers, Andy, you know of. David, you might not be aware of, except that he had a press release read out for him via Lauren Schaff on Fox News. Oh, sorry, this was a letter, but it's a press release. It's a Moorman PR exercise, and talking about, you know, he's going to support the girls. He wants to help the girls. He couldn't even be in court. He couldn't be in court on any of these days. None of the Mormons were there. They haven't helped the girls, and they were feuding. Barry and Suzanne. It was Barry and Suzanne, and Suzanne and her lover, against the world, because Barry had asked Jean Moorman for $100,000 to help buy the property in Permapath. They'd borrowed from other people as well. And David and Andy and Melinda wanted it paid back. Barry and Suzanne had asked for that money on the premise that when their Alexandria house sold, you know, the ones that people bitch about, oh, he sold her house in Indiana so fast. It was on the market since they moved. They wanted to sell it this entire time. They had to get it ready and they wanted to sell it. And before Suzanne went missing, that sale was underway. Got it? However, before it sold, they did pay the $100,000 back. No doubt Barry had to hassle more, had to be away from his sick wife even more, you know, to make this money, to pay it back, because Melinda and Andy and David, they wanted that money back in the pot, you know, because Jean was dying. So they wanted that money. They wanted to make sure it was back so it could be, you know, divided, right? And they were feuding over this. Suzanne's sick, and this is what they're concerned about. $100,000. And of their father's money, not their money, okay, not their money. And yeah, they didn't like that Suzanne and Barry had help without, you know, working the businesses or anything like that, right? This is entirely up to what that matriarch does. This isn't the only feud that was going on. This isn't the only problem. Suzanne was practically estranged from Jean when she left Colorado. Can you imagine? Her and Barry might actually have been able to bond again if Suzanne wasn't having the affair with Jeff Libler, who was interfering in her marriage. Not saving her, interfering, because Suzanne and her family, they had suffered loss after loss after loss since, was it 2013, roughly, you know, when Fred died. You know, well, you've got Fred who died, Suzanne's mother died. These deaths occurred. This this makes people very aware of their mortality and how they want to live the rest of their life. Suzanne chose that Puma Path house. You've just got to accept it. I think it might have been a home that they stayed in as maybe some Airbnb when they were visiting Mallory. And Suzanne decorated it. It was her furniture, okay? And I think it's a lovely house. I don't like the era of it or anything like that, but I think it's amazing. I think it would be beautiful. You know, Indiana, that home was kind of isolated, private, quiet, and so was Puma Path in its way. And Suzanne, suffering from cancer before she leaves, what the family decides is important is this money, right? They want to put pressure on Barry and Suzanne, to the point where I think Barry sort of snapped and said, oh, well, it's Suzanne that you've got to get it from then, isn't it, right? I think probably just throwing it back in the face, because they were being treated, they weren't being treated as, I can't explain that well, so I won't go down there. Yeah, it's just bonkers, right? Okay. And then David makes his press release, right? And he's been absent before and after. He was, rather than supporting his sick sister and trying to understand her mindset maybe about what sort of life she wants to try and live, because she's had one chance to save her life, you know, to live life anew after suffering cancer as a very young girl, getting married. She was married by 21, and I think, and you know, Barry was her hero then. And where was everyone else the second time round? It's Barry again. And yet the pressure is being put on them. Suzanne already complains. And this is what she's complaining about, right? He's never here. He's gone again. Well, why? Why? Because he's having to do things like, rather than give money from a sold house, he's having to do things to hustle to get $100,000 to give back to the Moorman family. Yeah, the Moorman family, even though it's Jean's money going back to Jean, and he was pressured, even though he had a poor relationship with his daughter, she's practically estranged, because she is deeply hurt by him, deeply hurt by Jean. And her brothers and sisters are saying, you better get that money back, Pop. You know, because maybe they're thinking about their $25,000 cut of it or whatever, right? When he trots off. Is this how it is? I mean, superficially, this is how it looks. Okay, I know it's not necessarily like that, but you could make an argument for it. And you know, they're only generous. It's just like Andy Moorman with his one generous line about Barry when he thought, gotcha, you know, with that search, with those fake dogs, you know, those useless dogs, where they were looking where there was nothing. They're not the right dogs. They weren't legally able to operate there. Do you see anything of what happened there with searches, with these YouTube channels? Do you see any of that going into providing concrete evidence about the disappearance of Suzanne? Has any of it helped to nail Barry Morphew for the crime? We're still as in the dark, you know. And again, in this letter, it's this just little paint splash of generosity from David, and saying, and you know, pretty soon we're going to all find out some terrible details. And you know, they're just so cocksure. And look, yes, it might be the case, but they seem very, you know, only on their terms, don't they? On their terms. So they've never gone to visit Suzanne in her new home. They didn't want to go and see her mansion. Their sour grapes wouldn't allow them because they'd borrowed money from what was going to be paid back from the sale of that Indiana home, okay, that Barry Morphew planted out beautifully in trees and landscaping so that it was an oasis for Suzanne and Mallory and Macy, you know. Suzanne has said she grew up, she brought those children up there. They were all feeling very safe there. He would go away hunting and she was safe, nestled in her home. In the home that he worked so hard for, to pay cash for, to not go into debt for, right? And then what do? Make it more difficult so that he's still not able to spend the time. This is what he has said he regrets, the hunting and the hustling. That's what he regrets because he wanted to be with Suzanne more. And that was the thing she complained about, you know. And having said that, you know, and they name her, they label her passive aggressive as well. That is a term that is often misused. People think it's being passive and then being aggressive. It's not, okay? It's being aggressive in a passive way, not putting out the rubbish when your spouse would like you to do so, just to piss them off. Things like that. Forgetting to put petrol in the car. Whatever, you know, niggly things. It can be tiny things like that or whatever. You know, after she's missing, calling her passive aggressive and, you know, basically judging the way she wanted to move forward, living her life, moving toward her 50s, towards the emancipation of her daughters from their home into their own adulthood, and realizing what, you know, reconsidering everything about their lives. And, you know, Melinda is saying she's judging both Suzanne and Barry as having changed and maybe their values changing. Well, you know, she got that right, didn't she? Because she didn't even did she realize quite how far Suzanne's values had changed? And Suzanne left Indiana for Colorado, letting Melinda believe that Barry was having an affair, right? Like, you know, that she was suspicious of things, but she wasn't saying, and I'm doing the same. So you're not able to, you know, there's that no true intimacy, right? And I know, I don't doubt that there's so much love there and that there was so much regret there between Suzanne and the family. You know, but they've let this money is at the root of, it is the root of evil, isn't it? But, you know, they've let money, not even their own money, their father's money, come between them, even when Suzanne was suffering cancer for a second time in her life. And who is the person there again? Well, it is Barry, because he's making the money before the sale of the house. Who knows what he was having to do to get that $100,000? And he's not then with Suzanne, is he? And they're choosing not to see it like that. And I know it's a choice. It could be just sort of a thought exercise, couldn't it? To think of it like that. Golly, this isn't the clear, concise chat that I thought I would have. It's just such an emotional topic. And I can too easily be construed as not having compassion for the Moormans. And I don't doubt that it's an intense time. It's a dreadful time. It's a grieving time full of stress and heartache. Where were they? They couldn't go to Colorado to the prelim either, though, right? Why not? Bullshit about it being about the girls. You know, they haven't tried to be there to support the girls, right? They say they want to reconcile and, you know, support the girls, help them develop into the woman they could be. Well, I think it's Suzanne and Barry that brought those girls up. It's nothing to do with the Moormans, okay? Because are they showing themselves to be what? People who perform stunts, and people who allow money override concern for someone suffering cancer. Their sister, their baby sister, yes, their baby sister. I don't like that term being used. Andy Moorman uses it, his baby sister. They didn't visit her. I might have to re-record this. Looks... They are in a horrible position, okay? They're in a horrible position. They are worrying about being judged. They have not come out to say, stop bullying our nieces. They haven't come out to say, do you know what, just get this out of the public forum. They have cozied with some of the YouTubers that have been doing the worst of it, right? Yeah. And they've taken that side, right? You know, and Chris is saying, oh, is this what it's come down to, just passing out a few flyers? Is this the search now? Do you know what? Chris, there is proof that Barry searched those mountains for months. There is proof of that, and I believe that is in the arrest affidavit. And what is in the arrest affidavit? You know, nothing that... I think, you know, there's a lot of people feeling the blow and thinking, have we been lied to? Have we been used? You know, has this been a fiasco? Have we made the right choices along the way? Should we have just stood up and done our thing? Barry's trust was eroded by everything he saw on YouTube, by things that not all of you that are watching, because mostly you're humanimals, well, about 40% of you are humanimals, subbed humanimals, but, you know, by things that you were watching, and me too, you know, I admit it. I got sucked along for a little while on a couple of counts. And that's, yeah, because of trust, right? But, you know, okay, trustworthy. And Barry did get burned over and over again. He had people phoning him, and all just to abuse and manipulate the situation for their own reasons, not genuinely wanting to help find Suzanne. I know there are people out there looking, but they also want to do it whilst they're burning Barry, whilst they're laughing at these meditative, insightful cartoons and things like that, while they're listening to, you know, Linda say, in my opinion, 500 times, right? And how can you have trust? How can he have trust? How could he even be... I would have been afraid to be Barry walking around the streets of Salida. Yeah, let's see what happens. We've got to wait now until the 17th of September, and no doubt there's going to be more bullshit and jelly beans right up until then. See you later.